Hey there guys, welcome to the next tutorial here on the channel. We're going to be making a duct tape ring in this video, which is kind of cool. It's going to be really small, so we're actually going to be zooming in a little bit later in the tutorial just to give you guys kind of an idea of exactly what I'm doing. So be prepared for that. And this is exactly what we're going to be making, which is really cool. Like I said, it is really small, so we're going to be working on that in great detail. So now let's get started here on making a duct tape ring. Alrighty, so for your first step you need to choose a color of duct tape that you're going to use for the inside of the band, and I used an electric blue in here. It doesn't matter what color you use because you're just going to be covering up with these tiny little pieces of duct tape on here, so it doesn't matter what color you choose. The first thing I did here was cut out a strip of tape that's 3.5 inches long, and that's more than long enough to wrap around any of my fingers here. So what we're going to do is actually going to cut that in half, just like this, with your hobby knife. Then we're actually going to take half of that piece and cut that in half. And we're actually going to be using this piece here. So one strip of tape here that's 3.5 inches long will actually make a whole bunch of different rings. So that's kind of cool. And it takes hardly any tape at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold that piece in half just like this. And that's going to be the band for our entire ring. And now we need to cut off a little piece of tape, and then I'm just simply going to connect it around one of my fingers just to get the size right. Now this is where it's going to be really helpful to have a helper or someone that can help you with this, but all we need to do is simply attach the band together here, and that can be kind of a daunting task if you're trying to wrap it on one of your own fingers. So we're just going to simply connect it there and slide off. Make sure it's not too tight but also not too loose at the same time. And now what we're simply going to do is we're going to start working on those tiny little flower petals that work for the outside of the band here. So let's work on that next. Now before we zoom in here on making these petals, I want to give you guys like kind of a crash course on making the flower petals if you guys don't already know how to do it. We're going to be working on squares that are a lot smaller than this, but it's exactly the same principle. You just take your square like this, you take the bottom right hand corner and you fold it to right about there and stick that down. You should see the letter L on the sticky side, as you can see there, a capital letter L. Then you can either take this piece and fold it down to create a pyramid on top, or you can take this piece and fold it down like this. It really doesn't make any difference as long as you form pretty much a perfect pyramid on the top here, and then a small little bit of sticky side on the bottom. So now let's zoom in, and we're actually going to be doing that exact same process on these tiny little pieces here for the ring. Okay, so we're zoomed in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting those squares there. And they don't exactly have to be perfect. If they're a little rectangular, it's going to be okay because these petals are going to be so small that it really isn't going to make too much of a difference if you mess up. You're probably going to have to cut more than this. I'm only going to have 6 here, and these 2 pieces are too small to really do anything with. So let's grab the first one here. If you have your hobby knife, that's definitely going to come in handy. So now we have our first square. I'm going to fold that to the top just like that. So you can see the letter L on the sticky side. Once again, I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to fold it over so that we have that pyramid with a little bit of sticky part on the bottom there. And now what I'm simply going to do is start it anywhere on my ring here. And this is where you want to leave just a little bit of sticky side on each part, just so you can wrap that piece around to the bottom, or I'm sorry, the back of the ring band. Very important that you leave a little bit on each side. Now before we move on to our second petal down here, I want to show you guys exactly how you can keep these 2 sticky sides to kind of stick on the inside of the band there, because usually there's not quite enough to hold on there really well. You can cut out a small little piece, probably a little bit longer than this, and that will effectively wrap around the entire part of the band, and that'll keep that petal from going anywhere. You want to do this before you apply the next one, of course, because otherwise you won't be able to get in there at all. So now let's work on our second piece, and this of course will be zebra. Bottom right hand corner, fold into about there. Once again, this one's a little bit thicker on the bottom and a little thinner on this side, so what I'm actually going to do is fold that piece in instead. And like I said before, you can decide which side you want to fold in. So now we have our tiny little flower petal. Make sure that's good and stuck on. Now you decide where you want to put it, and then I'm going to put it right there and wrap these pieces around each side just like this. So now I trust you guys can you know, just complete these steps by keep going from there, and then you're just going to keep doing this all the way around the entire part of the ring, and I'll show you exactly what it looks like once we get to the end. So now we come to that slight issue where you've applied all your petals all the way around and you're coming up on the very beginning of the ring once again. You're basically, all you're going to do to fix this issue is kind of just slip the petal as much as you can underneath the last one that you just did, and that will bridge the gap between the last one and the first one. And then you can kind of just wrap them around the sides just like you normally would, and that'll bridge the gap between the two. So that's how to make a duct tape flower petal ring, as you can see right there. So that's pretty much going to wrap up this tutorial on how to make duct tape flower petal rings, as you can see here. Of course, I chose to make mine really small, but you can make them in a variety of different sizes depending on what size you want. I just wanted to show you guys how small you can make them, because they're harder to make if they're smaller, and of course if you're making them a lot larger, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So hopefully you guys liked the video, and hopefully you guys will make a whole bunch of these cool rings and just wear them around. So hopefully you guys liked the video. Catch you next time.